All right, we are going live. It looks like we are going live. I see the red box in the corner and the clock is ticking. Hello and welcome and happy Sunday to everyone out there. And it's another installment of Sunday Night KloobySnacks. This one is number 15 overall, but it's a little bit different because I'm going to be flying solo tonight. My co-author, Abigail, is at Coachella, the music festival, and I'm smiling brightly. I remember when I was in between my first and second year of college going to the very first Lollapalooza festival. And now here's my daughter, 17 years old, going to her first Coachella. So we had her for 14 weeks. I'm flying solo today. It might be a brief session without her and without the interaction. And while I miss her dearly, there is also something cool about me and being able to just lead this session of KloobySnacks without the extra interaction, if you will. So for the brevity, for the efficiency of it, and then of course, when she comes back next week, we can even talk about tonight's snack in addition to next week's snack, etc. But let me go ahead and set the table. So KloobySnacks is the fifth book in a series of books that I've written that all have 52 tips or 52 standalone pieces of information or thought-provoking insights, etc. But of course, collectively, they make up 52 a year's worth. So these are made for social media books. It was my intention to come on to do a live stream once a week and to be able to email the database and to be able to post on social and to be able to create the videos and then have the content for repurposing of content. So that's what's going on. So as a brief review, the very first version that we did was the original Get a Clue in 52, expanding self and business, right? A practical guide for expanding self and business. That was solo. So the 5 categories in this book were accountability, communication, marketing, networking, and sales, 5 categories. And we just had to throw an extra 2 tips in the marketing section to get a year's worth. Then a good friend and a client of mine, Vipul Dayal, partnered with me to create the Entrepreneur Edition. Vipul himself is a serial go-giving entrepreneur. He and his wife have 13, 14 businesses. I'm fortunate enough to be able to help them with training and development and coaching and soft skill stuff for across their businesses. It's a really great endeavor. So I thought, hey, let's do a book together. So we did this one in 2022. Every week we read a tip from here. The 5 categories in the Entrepreneur Edition were personal branding, business acumen, business ownership, leadership and influence, and work-life balance. 52 tips across that board. Some basics and some deeper level entrepreneurial stuff. So that was the second book. And then the third Get a Clue in 52 that I did, I was back to solo working on this project myself. This was Get a Clue in 52 for coaches. So the 5 categories in this book are self-promotion, right? Promoting oneself as a coach, letting the world know that you're a coach. But then next category was engagement, getting people to hire you as a coach, getting engagements, getting clients, getting permission to lead others. And then once they're in the coaching relationship, we had the section on motivation. How do we provide motivation? And then accountability. How do we provide accountability? And then the 5th section of this book was practice building. And that took us to last year. And I see Charlie's coming on board now, so I'm not all by myself after all. Hey, Charlie, I see you here. I'm doing a bit of a review, so we'll jump you in conversationally in just a moment. So back to the review that I was setting up for everybody out there. The book that we did last year, we had a co-author, Sue Matheson, all the way from Australia. So it was an international affair. And we did 52 tips on public speaking. And we organized that into playing the integrity game and then personal branding. Of course, bring out your brand. And then we talked about 8 steps to fearless public speaking and practice building as well. And why is the 4th category slipping my mind? The 4th category was, let's see here. Yeah, so the 3rd was being fearless, which focused on 8 steps. But one of those 8 steps was so important, we broke it down into its own category, and that was the elements, forms, and functions of the anatomy of speech construction. And then ultimately, the 5th category here was practice building as a speaker. If you're building a speaking practice, or if you're using speaking to build your coaching, training, consulting practice, or if you're using speaking to maneuver and succession plan yourself upwardly mobile inside of your organization, right? To get advanced or raised or promoted. It's a good idea to know the accountabilities of business and make sure that you're boundary spanning and you're providing value add to the other people and the other moving parts in the business in addition to your functionality. So that got us to this year. And in all of these books, they were all Get a Clue in 52. All 4 of them, they were labeled Get a Clue in 52, just different editions, different versions. So at the end of last year, I decided, I've written a lot of motivational quotes. I've gotten good feedback on them. People ask me to stop when I'm doing public speaking. Hey, and they want to write it down, the wordsmithing, the phraseology of it. Some of them are silly and horrible, but that's where my daughter came in. I actually asked her at the end of last year to help me get it from over 100 down to 52. And at first I thought it was just going to be that. Like she was just going to help me get it down to the 52, and I would identify the quotes, and then I would write about the quote, how it came about, or a story that embodies the quote, or a lesson I've learned, or how I've helped other people with this quote. Or I was just right. And it's funny because I can hear her voice right now. My daughter's like, "No, Dad, that's too much. No, Dad. If you're already writing the quote, if you write about your own quotes, that's too much, Dad. Let me help." And I'm like, what? Anyway, so it evolved to where Abigail decided to write journal style responses to 48 of the 52 motivational quotes. One of the things that's really cool about this book is that instead of 5 categories, like all of the other books that I've written, all the Get a Clue in 52s, we came up with 4 categories, and we think it's kind of cute that 13 times 4 is 52, and 13 is a baker's dozen. Now, one of the reasons that's super, super, super cool for us is because the original KloobySnack is my wife's homemade cookies. I've been calling my wife's homemade cookies KloobySnacks for over 2 decades. It's just my motivational quotes caught up after a while, and now KloobySnacks have come to be either my wife's homemade cookies or my motivational quotes, where either way, Abigail is in her senior year of high school, and she's getting ready to go off to college later on this summer. And she had this vision of like passing on the family recipe. So the whole theme is about cooking and baking and passing on the family recipe, right? Whether it's the actual ingredients to a cookie recipe or the ingredients for life lessons and thought leadership. And what we've come up with in our categories is loving flavored, ego flavored, discipline flavored, and integrity flavored. So last week we started the brand new section, ego flavored. We got done with 13 KloobySnacks in loving flavored, and we read the first snack in ego flavored last week, and it was number 14 overall. Surrender is not the same thing as defeat. The last KloobySnack in the loving section is vulnerable is not the same thing as threatened. So we spent a lot of time talking about love being the willingness to be vulnerable, right? And vulnerable is not the same thing as threatened. And listening is love, and being curious, and embracing critical thinking, and all of those sorts of topics. And so we're not that far away from love, but we're talking now about ego when we're talking about our sense of self. So with all of that as a backdrop, with all of that as a preview and a summary of what's going on with Sunday Night KloobySnacks, it's the fifth Get a Clue in 52 project, the 5th one. It just doesn't have that name because we want to put KloobySnacks into the forefront. We want to institutionalize KloobySnacks. It would, there's a lot of motivational quotes out there. Why not mine? I think they're good. And they're good enough to at least give it a try and see if we can make them popular, and if we can get KloobySnacks like literally and metaphorically on the lips of people out there. We want, why not? Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and get into it. I'm going to read Abby's part in addition to my own, which is kind of weird, but I'll do it. And I don't know what else there is to say, but it goes a little something like this. I think I should present, and I'll do that. Okay. I have to restore. No, we don't want that to take too long. KloobySnacks. Okay, good. That's good enough. All right, so here we go. Let me go to present. I'll take you guys on the visual journey with me. Okay, so you all should be able to see my screen right now, and the project is fun. We loved the design. We love the cookie themes with the advanced praise and the rolling pins. We love those little details about the project. We also, like I mentioned to you, the menu. We like the menu design of like a bakery or baking and old school. It's got some old school to it. And my daughter's very old school. Let's see, Charlie's trying to get in. Let's help him there again. And let me go back. I thought I was sharing, wasn't I? Yeah. Share. All right. So there's dedications, and then here's Marianne's original recipe, like I talked about, the original KloobySnack recipe. We kept it secret for all these years, but Marianne was willing to let it fly in support of this project. And I wrote a very emotional introduction once Abigail told me that she was going to be writing responses to the tips. That was going to be less writing for me. So I really put a lot of vulnerability and heart on my sleeve in the introduction about how emotional I was around this project and how therapeutic it was for me and how healthy it was for me and how much healing and how much discovery and how much learning. And it was really tremendous. And without getting into all of that, like we said, the first baker's dozen was loving flavored. So we went through 13 motivational quotes. I'm not going to review them all, but I'm going to scroll through them in order to get to tonight's ego flavored KloobySnack. And last week, of course, we read the opening to the section right here, which was written by me. And then last week's KloobySnack number 14 was surrender is not the same thing as defeat. And then that takes me to tonight's KloobySnack, which is number 15. And it goes a little something like this. Ego defense is an emotional fight or flight response. All right, so Abby responds to that as follows. Fight or flight is a natural response that's hardwired into our human nature. When in harm's way, people will either avoid harm by running away or attack the harm directly. Some people lean further towards the flight side of the spectrum. Some prefer the fight side, and some switch between both coping mechanisms. This self-defense mechanism is no different from ego defense. Whenever our sense of self feels attacked, we will either run from the situation or attack whomever we feel is attacking us. This ties into the KloobySnack quote, "People who lack self-confidence always feel intimidated by a true leader," end quote. When we see someone who doesn't share our insecurities, we will either attempt to belittle them or avoid them altogether, fight or flight. Confrontation, other people's confidence, and emotion are all things that are perceived to threaten our sense of self. Rather than facing these things, we either run from them or attack them. Both options are methods of avoidance and will in turn prevent us from change. The best way out is through, and change cannot come from avoidance. There we go. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Abigail's not here for her to explain her own response. And one of the things that we have enjoyed realizing on a week-to-week basis is that Abigail wrote that response, I want to say in October or November. And now it's like several months later, and she might not respond the same way. I can tell you that she was attempting some of the snacks. She got it right away, and she had her own interpretation. Some of the snacks, she'd be like, "Dad, what do you mean by this? What are you getting at here?" And I would kind of tell her what I mean, and then she would, right? And this is one of those where she was leaning on my help a little bit more than she had in other KloobySnacks. So what I want to say about this one is very simple. Imagine flinching, or imagine a buzz by your ear, right? And so when the buzz comes along, we don't stop and think about it and consider it strategically, like, I hear a buzz by my ear, and that could be a bee, and that could sting me, and I could get hurt. So I'm in danger right now. So what should I do? What would be the wise thing? What would be the logical thing? Should I Google how to avoid bee stings, or should I call my wife and ask her what to do? We don't do that. We just swat and duck immediately. We just immediately swat and duck. So and then we look, and it's a fly instead of a bee. So what I want people to understand is fight or flight response is automatic, it's instinctual, it's hardwired, it's built in. It's not a logical choice to do fight or flight. It's an automatic instinct, even if we're not really threatened. The perception of threat, right? So sometimes we swat at or ignore a fly instead of a bee. We're not really harmed anyway, but we're hardwired to defend ourselves. So ego and arrogance, those terms get used interchangeably. When I talk about ego, I talk about sense of self. That's it. Not good or bad or right or wrong. So we could say like an underinflated ego, overinflated ego, but ego in itself is neither good nor bad. Ego is just sense of self, and we all have an ego. Egos have needs, of course, to protect itself, right? Ego is hardwired to protect itself the same way we're hardwired to protect our physicality, our physical bodies. So the only two ways to defend anything, well, I guess three people have argued, right? Play dead, fight, or flight. So attack, run, or be still. Play dead, right? But when we talk about the context of fight or flight, any threat that comes along, any perceived threat, we're either going to attack it or we're going to run from it. Well, guess what? Any information that comes along that contradicts our sense of self will trigger an emotional fight or flight response, where verbally or non-verbally or physically or like, right, from a communication perspective, we either attack, right, or ignore. And this happens a lot in our polarized, world that we're living in with politics and media sources, etc. Gone are the days where we could just agree to disagree, but now these days anybody different than me is wrong or bad, or on and on and on. There's been a new era of name calling and othering and a lot of stuff that I don't like to see. So, but it's all a function of ego defense, right? And it's one of the barriers to critical thinking. It's one of the barriers to listening. And I'm here to say it's one of the barriers to loving, right? Is ego defense. But guess what? We can't stop. We'll never stop defending our egos. It's hardwired. It's baked in. But what we can do is become aware of ego defensive incidents and then make a more logical choice to lengthen the fuse, to be open-minded, to be curious, to ask questions, to second guess our own values, attitudes, beliefs, and ignorance or awareness in favor of growth and tolerance and respecting others and being a loving person, right? And coming into a sense of peace with our ego rather than constantly defending, which means we're either constantly attacking or constantly ignoring. And that makes it tougher for constantly evolving, right? So that's my soliloquy on ego defense is an emotional fight or flight response. Let me go ahead and say hello to you, Charlie. You're all the way from South Africa. You're joining us tonight. How's everything?
Hi, Coach Jeff. Good evening to you. It's early morning my side. Still dark outside.
Uh-huh.
This KloobySnack is so relevant to emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Is how do you react in different situations? Yes, it's sometimes you need to be able to assess. Do I fight, defend, or do I just let it go, lie still, or run away? It's quite. It's not as complicated, but you just need to assess what the situation is at the time.
Yeah, when I'm public speaking on this, I make the joke like, hey, we're born with fight or flight response. Now, I never really understood how could we understand like, uh-oh, dinosaur, I'm running. Uh-oh, spider, I'm stomping. But it's somehow we figure it out. If it's a spider, we stomp. If it's a dinosaur, we run. Somehow we figure it out. I think it's funny but it's an instinctual automatic response. So you say, you're being so defensive. No, I'm not. Yet we are always defensive. 100%. We are always ego defense. We're never gonna not be hardwired, spring loaded like a mousetrap. I like to say, to defend our sense of self. And so but that's emotional, right? That emotions show up to every party first. We hope logic arrives fashionably late, stays a little longer, and helps clean up, right? So I've been in those situations before where I've said, oh, you know what? The comment I made was just a knee-jerk preservation of my own situation. Let me take that back. Will you tell me again why you're doing what you're doing so I could learn from what you consider to be valuable about that? I mean, that's mind-blowing stuff. People don't do that, right? Usually people defend their egos and they lock in, and then it becomes a push and a pull, and people are pressing on each other and not interacting, not integrating. So, and I don't know if you came in late, but Abigail's not here today because she's at a music festival, Coachella, here in Southern California. So, or like wherever the desert, whatever it is in the desert. And so 14 in a row, and she's missed tonight. So, and I had to read her part, right? And so I'm looking forward to her being back next week. So maybe we'll talk about tonight's KloobySnack in addition to number 16, which is coming up next week, and give Abigail the chance to talk about this snack and dialogue around this snack. But let me ask you, since you've taken the time to be here, Charlie, tonight, do you have any questions or anything else to add before we wrap up? Because I expected without Abigail for this to be a brief session. So I'm actually going to get into last call a little bit early tonight. What do you got?
No, Coach Jeff, you've basically covered everything, especially where you mentioned, like, hey, dinosaur, let me get out of here. Again, it's what is the situation? How do you address it? And how do you compensate after realizing that situation, as you just mentioned, that, oh no, I was fixed on that. How do you think we could move forward with this thing better? And it does become very, very crucial, especially in negotiations and putting deals together, because one person is actually fixed on what their outcome would want to be,
Mm-hmm.
and they will, stick to that. And that's what I've learned about this,
Or the other way
alignment.
around, or the other way around, they can forget about the outcome that they truly desire in
Mhm.
favor of defending their ego. So somebody on the other side of the table could say something like a personal insult, and then the person now is trying to, mess with all of that, and they take their eye off the prize. Like, hey, you can call me
Yes,
whatever name you want as long as this is the final number.
yes.
Right?
Actually, it actually happened, um, ironically, day before yesterday. I'm actually busy negotiating a deal, and this guy, I said something, and he took his eye off the prize and wanted to go into it, and I had to just bring him back. He says, "Oh no, no, hold on a minute. We're not going down that route at this stage of the negotiation, or what we are discussing now. We are here. So let us just stick to this part. That part follows on later on." And then he just appreciated that I brought him back into where the conversation was at the time.
Yeah, yeah. And hopefully what we're doing here in our cute, fun, digestible, I've used that word on purpose, way, like playing on the KloobySnacks thing, the cookie metaphor. Hopefully we're making it easier for people to see and recognize instances of their own and others' ego defense, so as not to judge and blame and scapegoat or take things personally, or misconstrue the situation or take our eyes off true prizes, right? It's normal and natural for people to offend their egos, but that's not the whole story. That's not the final word. And so if we can increase, I say lengthen the fuse, right? If, oh, I'm aware I was being ego defensive right now. Hang on, let me take a deep breath and be growth minded right now. What would I say if I was growth
Yes.
minded? Okay, let me do that. And one person, one session, one vibration at a time, one ripple effect at a time. We hope to introduce more loving, more tolerance, more curiosity, more patience, more integrity, more all the stuff that we want into the world. So, um, yeah, ego, getting people aware of ego defense, making sure we understand the automatic nature of it, making sure we understand, its dangers, right? But also its nature, it's natural. So we can't be upset with ourselves. We can't be upset with others when they're doing what's natural, right? We have to be the leaders, and we have to be the safe spaces for people to get out of that instinctual reaction and choose more measured, loving, and strategic responses rather than reactions, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. What else, Charlie?
absolutely.
Anything else for tonight?
No, and again, Klubi snacks, they can be interpreted in so many, many different ways. One snack can have, depending on what your situation is, what you need to deal with. Just go read through them. One will pop up and address the issue you are dealing with.
Yeah, it's I appreciate you saying that, Charlie. We're just a couple months into, putting this out into the world. I'm excited to see where it can go. And I think that there needs to be future versions of KloobySnacks, or like maybe a workbook, uh, where Abigail's responses aren't in there, but we invite responses from the rest of the world. Like, hey, what do you think of this? What's your interpretation of this? Or here, or create, like, we could double the size of the book and just add a journal page instead of a journal page, at the end of every section, right? So like right here, we've got a page for notes at the end of every section. Well, it's like 2 pages, right? But if I put 1 page or 2 pages for notes after every snack, then the book would go from 136 pages to 272 pages, right? But wow, I just have a vision for people's
Yeah.
handwritten notes and their interpretations or their thoughts or their ideas, or the ahas that KloobySnacks might be able to help people arrive at. Like you said, whatever you're going through, just thumb through KloobySnacks, and at some point you're going to read something that's going to help the situation. But all of them combined are asking everybody to look within, right? Let's look within at our capacity for love. Let's look within and be honest about our instances of ego defense. Let's look within and be honest about our level of discipline and dedication to reality that we'll get into next section. And then ultimately we end with 13 snacks in integrity, integrity flavored KloobySnack. So all of it is like, every job is an inside job. And
you took it out of my mouth. I was just wanting to finish with that one.
Yeah. So this is the journey that we're on. It feels a little weird without Abigail here tonight, but I'm glad that you showed up for a little banter, a little interaction. So here we are. Last call, Charlie. Anything else before we dismiss for tonight?
All good, Coach Chef. You have a brilliant evening further. My day has just started.
All right.
Got quite a bit to do.
I'll be up for a little while longer, but go ahead and make it a great day, Charlie. And thank you for joining all the way from the other side of the world to be supportive of what we're doing here. And no crumbs left behind. And Abigail,
none at all. None at all.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe we'll see you next week, Charlie. Thank you so much. All right. Good night, everyone.
Absolutely. Good night, Coach Jim.
All right. Bye-bye now.